Mr. Tony,
Okay. How you doing?
doing pretty good, man. How are you?
I'm good.
This
I'm trying to hold on. Something popped up, David.
okay?
The meeting is being recorded, and I pressed got it, and
Yeah.
it's still there.
Does
Okay.
it let you move it to the side?
Yeah, I'm moving. Okay, go for it. We're good.
Yeah, it lets you know that I'm recording. You know what I mean? So, uh, uh, man, this is probably really different for anybody that watches your podcast. It's a different background.
Yeah, you know what? This is my grandbaby's playground right here.
Okay.
So we have two living rooms, so we made one kind of like a little nursery for them. We
Yeah.
put a TV. This is where they pretty much they thrash, throw dinosaurs and Spider-Man everywhere.
Yeah. This is kind of
So
cool though, man, to be honest with you, because um people are gonna watch this and see you out of your element. You know, everybody's used to that Rhodium background, and that's kind of cool, man. That's cool. Thank you.
well, you know what? I love being a grandfather. Like as soon as they come home, you know what? It's grandpa time, and we go outside, pop water balloons, throw them at each other, or I turn on the sprinklers, and they like to run around. And lately, I've been teaching them how to break dance. So my grandbabies are like my world right now.
Yeah, I like that you say that because I think a lot you have so much content out that I think a lot of people think you probably live in that studio, but you don't. You have a life.
Yes, I have a life, and I love my life. I'm happy with my life. I couldn't be happier, David, honestly. I'm 54 years old. I'm looking forward to being 55. I talk to people that are older than me, and every time, you ask them their age, they get depressed, like, oh, I'm about to be 60 or I'm
Yeah.
about to hit 40. And I'm looking forward to getting older, staying in shape. I have a young heart. I truly believe God has blessed me in many areas of my life. So for me to be around, I want to be a blessing, not only to my family, my grandkids, but to everyone.
Yeah, yeah. So I appreciate it. I want to give God all the glory because God always gets all the glory for everything and just making this possible, this friendship possible. And
Yes.
I didn't want to do a video to talk about nothing. I wanted to talk about a couple things, but one of them, man, I got to say is that um, before and maybe there's others that I didn't know of. I don't know every channel in the world. You know what I mean? There's no way. But for me, um, I remember seeing Joe Rogan. I remember seeing that. So it blew me away when you started popping up on my YouTube feed. And then I recognized your name because I knew who you were. I knew who you were because I don't know if you recall me saying that I actually saw you in Hollywood when I had not yet reached my peak as a musician, as an artist. But I remember I saw you there. You had a leather jacket on right there on Hollywood Boulevard. You on there was a radio station, maybe Power
I'm
106.
on 06.
Yeah, and it's just crazy that here we are, friends. You know what I mean? But um,
Absolutely.
so when I saw your podcast come up, I was blown away because I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's a Chicano doing it. And
Yeah.
so ever since then, and maybe you weren't the first. I'm not trying to say, I don't know, but you were the first to pop up on my feed. And I'm 6 hours away from you. You know what I mean? So I'm not in the greater LA area or nothing. And so I got to ask this question, man, because a lot of people are doing it. I mean, look at me. I'm sitting here with this microphone in front of me now. I enjoy doing these conversations now. It's not a regular thing for me, but I enjoy doing it. There's a lot of people doing it. And I guess this question I got to ask that I don't know if anyone's asked you is what are the what have been the negatives and the positives of this thing? Is it something that is it a love and hate relationship, or I mean, what are your thoughts on the podcast world?
Well, first and foremost, I always tell people because people come up to me and they ask me, how has your podcast been so successful? And I honestly, David, I have to say to myself, have I really been successful? Yeah, maybe it's gotten popular and it's gotten views. Am I at where I want to be at? No, absolutely not. Because you know what? I'm a big dreamer. I've always believed that if you're going to dream, dream big. And I still see this going bigger. But I will say this: that if I were to give a message to a up and coming podcaster or somebody who wants to podcast, it's a beautiful thing to be able to shine light on an up and coming artist or an up and coming author or up and coming athlete or whatever the case may be, especially shining light on our people.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a beautiful thing. It really, really is. Because not only are some of them learning from me, but I'm also learning from them, and it's the truth. I learn from a lot of my guests, even if they're younger than me. I learn from them, even if it's just one thing. I learn from them. So that's a beautiful thing. But do it simply because you want to help. Don't do it because you're chasing monetization. And I'll be honest with you. I think now that I've been doing it in 2 days, it'll be 3 years since I started Rhodium Radio, September
Wow.
11th, 2019. And now what I see a lot of podcasts that people have told me they've copied you, and if I inspired or encourage someone, then that's a dope thing. I don't ever want to tell somebody, oh, you copied me. But when I start listening to some of the questions, they're almost verse for verse for verse the way I interview
Yeah.
someone. Now, somebody may say, well, maybe you just inspired them, and I accept that. That's cool. If I had been able to inspire an up and coming podcaster, and that's also another positive thing. But to see people that, like, I'll give you one example. I had an artist here that came here with 6,000 followers on Instagram. Did one interview, and I told this person, you could either, gain fans or lose fans. All depends on how you represent yourself.
Yeah.
And there's 4 ways, and hopefully I can remember them. I tell them how you could win a fan over. Number one, shows when you perform. Number two, interviews like this. Number three, videos. And number four, good music. There's many ways that you can win a fan. This person was so charismatic. It was this person's first interview. This person's now got over 100,000 followers on Instagram,
Wow.
and it's getting booked and performing. So for me, being able to have contributed in this person's career, that's my pay.
Yeah.
That's what I get out of it.
That's cool. Especially if you like to have good conversation. I mean, you're basically having conversations with different people. You know what I mean? And people are interesting. People are
It's,
interesting, and man, that's pretty cool. What inspired yours? Because was it? I know I mentioned Joe Rogan, but maybe it had nothing to do with him. But what? There had to be somebody that inspired you, or something inspired how to do your setup, or set the table up, or like what made you think like, okay, I want to do it, where I'm going to have this table with some of the, what inspired that? Has anybody asked you that?
no, no, and I'm glad you are, David, because I really didn't know what I was doing. What a lot of people may not know, I might have shared it once or twice on different podcasts, but I literally was begging people to interview me because I had just directed my first documentary for my manager, Steve Yano, who had passed away, rest in peace. And I didn't know how to get it out there, the word out there that I had this new documentary. I did a 3-hour documentary honoring this man. I have a bunch, like 20 different people that I interviewed that can confirm everything that I'm saying is true about this man. Now, I went around to different podcasting. And the reason why I went around to different podcasts, because I was new back to the game. And when I say back to the game, I had been out of the game for about 15 years.
Yeah.
So when I come back, everybody's telling me podcasting's a thing. So I'm thinking, what is podcasting? What is it?
I didn't know what it was either.
Yeah, I go, so it's a conversation and people post it up on Spotify, on iHeart. And I said, what is Spotify? Because I was still listening to CDs,
Yeah.
sometimes even cassettes. So I would ask people, hey, man, I heard you have a podcast. Would you interview me? Some people flat out told me no. They said, I don't know who you are. Some people said, sure, I remember who you were, who you used to be or whatnot. So I must have did about 60 podcasts. And it wasn't until the last one that this one guy said, oh, we do ours live. And I said, well, what do you mean by live? He said, we go live on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm familiar with someone with YouTube. So we went live and there was probably maybe 3 people watching. So I asked him, why do you decide to go live if nobody's watching? how long have you guys been doing this? And he said, for 5 years.
Wow.
And I said, nobody's watching? And he goes, we just do it because we love hip hop. Okay. So I started to call those other guys on Spotify and where they were putting my interviews on all platforms. And I said, how are you guys' views? They're okay. We probably get about 25, 30, listens. So I started thinking, okay, I need to go against the grain. So I'm going to start a podcast and we're going to go ahead and put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
To make a very long story short, David, I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't. I didn't find the table that I have until the day before. I was just going to regularly use like a picnic table that somebody was going to give me. And again, I had two brick, canvases behind me. I had cheap mics. I think all my equipment all together out of my own pocket probably costed me a little bit under $1,000. And we were ready to go. I didn't know if anybody was going to listen. I only had 238 subscribers, and I accumulated those within a year only because when we were filming our documentary, we were loading up clips so that we could send a link to people to check out. It was never meant to start a podcast. So, and then what happened was we went live and we had about 48 people watching. And again, David, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where it was going to go. And within months, I had over 10,000 subscribers.
Wow.
When I say months, like within 3 months, the word just started getting around. I remember I would have maybe 7,000 subscribers and my views were like 24, 30,000 views. And I actually thought that something was wrong with my YouTube because my views kept going up. And and people would see me on the street, David, and say, man, I see your podcast. And I would say, why? Like, well, because I like you interviewing the OGs. All right. I was still trying to find out why people were watching.
Yeah.
Because I was new to this game. So as far as the table, I found it the day before. Some dudes from South Central had it on Facebook and they were selling it. And I went over there and it was thrashed. It was, they were rolling up weed. They were drinking Modelo's off of it. They were sitting on it. It was in somebody's front yard. So I went over there and I saw it. The guy wanted $200 and I said, I'm out of here. This is trash. And then he just told me, okay, then just take it for free.
What?
That's what he said. He said, just take it for free. So I said, okay, cool. So I took it and we disinfected it. We cleaned it. And then my boy tells me it looks empty. Well, I collect toys. I collect masks. I'm a collectible type of guy.
Yeah.
So I just threw a bunch of stuff on there and I said, let's go.
So that wasn't even planned. You just.
No, none of it was.
That is
none of it
funny.
Was. And you know, David, when people ask me now, why do you think they watch your show? At least one thing I think I figured out, that if they like you, they'll watch you. If they like you, they'll watch you. Now, people say, well, maybe it's just your guest. Well, there's other people that have gone through my entire Roadie Radio catalog, are re-interviewing all my guests and still get no views. So I come to the conclusion that if they like you, they'll tune in.
Yeah.
Of course, you got to do a little promotion of yourself. So
yeah, I'm not even sure. I mean, who knows why YouTube does their algorithms to where like it popped up on my feed. You know what I mean? And I don't even think it was who you were interviewing. It was because I recognized who you were. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh man, he's doing something. And I remember I just started watching, subscribed. And then later on, I think a couple months later, I got an email and that's where we connected, But that's interesting to know, man, because whether people want to admit it or not, I mean, it's become something, in the same way there's some other podcasts that have grown too, in the same way, you got Gills too, what I mean, that are becoming pillars, almost the voice of this community of ours,
right.
And it's just interesting. It's interesting seeing this thing because I don't think it's reached its peak. You know what I mean? It's just kind of this thing growing, and then I find it fascinating. Just I sit back and watch, and I'm just like, wow, this is cool,
I'm having a good time doing it. There have been times, David, that I've wanted to stop, And then I think about a lot of the other artists that are hungry for some type of recognition for all the hard work that they put in their music. And I always say, we don't have a Latino BET. We don't have a Latino, MTV. If we do, it's probably in other countries, okay? And MTV is no longer even about music.
Yeah.
It's all about, reality shows. And as it is here in LA, and I'll just go ahead and say, we have Pablo 106, we have KD, and we'll hire Latinos to work there,
Yeah.
but yet we won't play music from our own people. And I think this is where it's almost like a contradiction. I'll give you one example. Like, I just had Reverie here, Chicana, and I interviewed her. She did an interview with Pablo 106, and she did an interview with K-Day, two big stations, okay?
Yeah.
How would you interview her and never play her music?
Yeah.
They've interviewed guys like King Little G on both stations. You give them their 15-minute interviews, but you never play their music. I don't understand that. So
yeah, that's odd, actually. That's odd,
yeah. So
wow. So the negatives can be really negative. I think that not just in just in the internet itself, there's it can lead down a really dark road if you want it to.
yes.
How do you find that balance of because obviously you're interviewing artists. A lot of them are from neighborhoods, a lot of them are from, what I mean? So how do you keep that balance of saying, I can't let this lead down a dark road, at the same time, it's street, it's very street, it's very urban, it's very, and then it's crazy because then you'll get somebody like me and a pastor, and you give me a chance. You know what I mean? So it's like this fine balance of running this podcast.
Um, David, a lot of people may not know this, and I don't try to be how would you say? I hate when people use the word, I'm not perfect, so I'm not going to use that word. And I don't want to use the word, I call myself spiritual. I don't use that. That there are times that I do reach out to God to lead and to guide me, simply because in the past, I used to have a lot of anger issues, like really anything could trigger me. So when I started noticing that some of my guests were triggering me, I've always reminded where my strength and comfort and my peace comes from. I remember one passage that I read many years ago, and it said, "In this world you will have tribulation, but in me you will have peace." And I've always held on to that. I'll give you an example. I had a Spanky Local here, and this is the famous question that I asked him about Night Owl. Would he be willing to sit down and talk to Night Owl? And he said, "No, but I'll wipe myself with that doll." And I kept my composure because I got really angry, because not only did I think, Spanky was cool, but at that time I considered Night Owl a friend.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was thinking to myself, please don't get up and grab that doll, because it's going to go somewhere I don't want to go. And I kept my composure, and I just changed the subject.
Yeah.
I just changed the subject. So as a podcaster, and for those of you listening, you will come across moments like that where sometimes, the artist or the person you're interviewing will trigger something in you. And it's best for you to handle it professionally and just walk away from the conversation or the subject. It's pretty much, David, almost like turning the other cheek. So and there's been guys like, here's the negative part about podcasting. To me, it's probably the scheduling, because you have people that want to reschedule. And then there's times that people will just say, you know what, I just want to cancel.
Yeah.
And then you'll see them on another podcast like the following week. And I'm like, why would this guy literally beg me? Send me his music, send me his videos, send me his bio. and then just cancel. Like, so expect some of those things. Those are some of the negative things. I don't hold it against people, but and then again, David, I have come across people that have sent me threats because I haven't interviewed them, send me hateful emails. I know they actually sent me my address,
Wow.
you know. So those are the negative things, and I just don't respond. I just don't reply. I'm not going to continue to throw, you know, unnecessary wood into the fire, as they say. But I would say those are some of the negative things that I have faced. I've had my life threatened, and I'm just going to keep it real with you, David. I had my house shot at,
Yeah.
you know. So I had people call in when we're taking calls. That's one thing we need to get better. We need to start screening our calls. I just answer, and there'll be guys that just start talking mess,
Yeah.
you know, and you could just either hang up on them, or you can try to reason with them, or just
Yeah.
majority of the time it's just hang up on them. So
I remember the first time, obviously you didn't know too much about me when you first called me over there, and we talked a little bit before. Um, but I noticed there's been a few other times you have had podcasts with other guests, and I would watch, and the guy in the beginning would say, you know what, I'm a born again Christian, and by the end of the podcast, you guys are taking shots and he's drunk. Do you, when I came to you, was there a part of you that had to test the waters to see? Because what if I was just that person too? You know what I mean? Or how was it like when somebody says they're this or they're that or whatever? um I have a feeling that just as a person, I notice you have a really strong what's it called, discernment. um were you testing the waters the first time I was there?
no, David, there was just something different about you, honestly. And I could probably say that about a few guests. Probably with one hand, I could probably count them. Out of 274 interviews that I've done on Rodian Radio, I can say that you were probably the first one that I felt something a little different. I didn't see you, David, as the ex norteño gangbanging rapper. That's what people saw about you when they told me, why are you going to have that guy on?
Yeah.
You know, I didn't care what people thought. One thing about this, David, before I answer your question, is that in podcasting, you have to have thick skin for this. You
Yeah.
do. And but you were just different. I didn't even want to offer you anything as far as other than water or soda or something. I just didn't. I didn't want to disrespect you. I don't care if you're older than me or younger than me. Not only do I fear God, but I also fear a man of God. And one thing that I've learned as a man, I never want to cause a person who is trying to serve God, I never want to cause him to stumble
Yeah.
because of me. You know, uh, I never want to do that. So that's why I'm very careful when I meet people like yourself. Because I truly believe that how I conduct myself and how I treat you, and if I cause you to stumble, you know, I believe that I can be held accountable for that.
Yeah.
I am a firm believer in God. I really am. Now, am I living it? No, David, I'm not. Do I know the truth? Yes, David, I do. Am I going to be held accountable for knowing what I know? Absolutely. And everybody who's watching, who's in my shoes right now, you're going to be held accountable. So at one point or another, we're just going to have to get right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if I
and
answered
even,
your
and I
question.
think even like when I showed up, obviously you know this by now. I always show up with Sharon. I always show up with her because for me, accountability is a huge deal. There's no way I was going to be down in Los Angeles on a podcast by myself. You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I didn't know if it was in a studio, in a house, in the garage. I didn't know if there's going to be women around. I had no idea. I didn't know you other than Tony A with High C, and you know what I mean. That's all I knew you by. You know what I mean. So, uh, um, so if you're gonna get me, you're gonna get Sharon when I walk in the room. You already know that, you know. But yeah, that was I just noticed. I couldn't help but notice even um I appreciated the fact that you even your language, you know what I mean? Even and it has I don't like that. It's not toward me. I think that's a reverence toward God. Yeah.
Of course, of course. Let me say something. I watched Joe Rogan from time to time. He had Evander Holyfield on there, and Evander Holyfield, he proclaims that he's a Christian. Okay, and from what I've seen him, fight and several interviews, whenever he's boxed, I mean, and then I've seen him in several interviews, he's always proclaimed Jesus Christ. He's always been very, very bold about that. And I know that Joe Rogan is somewhat confused when it comes to believing in God because he says, you know what, I'm not going to admit it, I'm not going to deny it. So he's what you would call, I believe, an agnostic.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what he claims. But Evander Holyfield, knowing that, did not change his proclamation and proclaiming Christ when he was talking to him.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate that. And, you could have done the same thing and said, oh, Tony's not a believer and, or I don't know if he is. So let me just not mention Jesus as much.
Yeah.
You didn't do that.
Yeah.
And I respected that from you. And I think that, believe it or not, is when I see if a person is really, really real.
Yeah.
So you were real, and it gave me a lasting impression of you. And then when we talked, I believe a couple of days later, I said, you know what, David, I don't see you as, Sir Dino. I don't see you as David Rocha. I see you as a man of God. And that's how I'm going to see you. And I've always respected that of you, because there's very few people that I believe are truly men of God.
Yeah.
So, and you're one of them. So,
and believe it or not, I know you had said when I went on your show, some people said, why are you going to have him on there? Why? And I hate to admit the fact, and these are not people I know, but I've had an occasional person saying, if you're a pastor, why are you fellowshipping with people like Tony A or American Cholo or whoever, when I did an interview with Gunner or this person, what kind of Christian are you? And I'm like, wait a second. I did not go onto the Tony A show and got influenced. I believe I have the influence. The Bible says that greater is he who's in me than he who's in the world. I was going to bring some light in because I didn't know you that good. You know what I mean? And I trip out because the flag hasn't been, it's very, very minimal, but once in a while you get it's there. Like, why are you doing these, even these interviews? Like, why aren't you talking about God the whole time? You know what I mean? And I'm like, and I'm like, me and you talk a lot on the phone, right?
yes,
We
yes, correct.
we have prayed on the phone, and it's like I think that the whole reason why I have this channel, because this is I'm doing this on my new channel because the other one I wanted to have it for the devotionals, the Bible studies, the sermons. I like talking about my cycling. I like talking about my aquarium. I like talking about books. And I didn't want to bog the church channel with a lot of that stuff because if people are looking for church, I want them to find devotionals, Bible studies, and sermons. So I have this David Rocha, which is more me, which is I love conversating with my friends. I love if I want to go live when I'm cycling because I want to show this beautiful lake or whatever. I want to be more free.
Yes.
And being a Christian is not always talking about God. Being a Christian is living is your walk louder than your talk. And so I don't see an issue with talking to you because here's the thing, right? Is building a friendship with you is when in times of trouble, have you called me at times of trouble?
Yes,
You've called me
absolutely.
because you know that I'm going to give you the best godly wisdom I can give, you know. And the same thing goes with anybody else, you know. And I believe that I have now built that relationship with even Gil, you know. And I didn't know how that was gonna go. I remember I came to see you, and I was gonna go on his show a few days later. I didn't know what to expect, you know. And God has just given me this favor where I can go into places where I think usually pastors won't be invited to,
Right.
you know. And I have to say, okay, Lord, you're putting me in this position for a reason, you know what I mean? And I don't even know where I was going with that, man, but
No,
I
it's okay.
but I do
You
get
know,
flack. I have gotten flack on my end a little bit.
you know, um, if I take this out of context, please correct me, David. But I remember a time in the scriptures where Jesus was invited to go to a Pharisee's home. Now, for those of you that have studied the Pharisees, we know, at least in my opinion, David, they really didn't know God.
No.
They really didn't know God. They didn't really even know who was in front of them because they didn't even greet him with a kiss and they didn't even give him water for his feet.
Yeah.
Now he's there, and a woman walks in. She begins to weep at on his feet and wipe the tears off of his feet with her hair. And one of them says, if he really is who he says he is, and I'm paraphrasing, he would not allow this woman to touch him.
Yeah.
And the Bible says that Jesus perceived his thoughts and he began to ask him questions. Now, those were ungodly people. And in the midst of those ungodly people, there Jesus spoke to a woman, lifted her up and said, go and sin no more. Okay.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, David, is that I liken that to you coming over here. And there's a possibility that you can meet somebody like that. You know, that maybe you weren't an influence on everybody that was in the room with me, but there possibly could be one person that says, you know, David, can I talk to you? I really need help. I'm suicidal. I'm hooked on drugs. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know if I'm, you know, many times you're not going to find. What I always understood from Christians is that they just want to hang around with Christians. Now, I'm not saying you go around and you hang around with me. We're drinking 40s and eating mariscos. We're not doing that. We're conversating.
Yeah.
We're talking. I don't see an issue with that. So by you coming over here, if people have a hard time with that, I really don't understand it because I truly believe that you have made an impact not only in my life, but also in my family's life. So good things have come out of this fellowship is my point.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point because I don't like if I go somewhere and I see the alcohol come out, the weed come out, that I'm gonna leave because I'm not gonna feel comfortable, you know. But you're right, you know what I mean? And I'm glad you brought that up and because that's all I'm trying to I'm just trying to be a light, man. I'm trying to be a light. And yeah, I preach in the four walls, but I can't stay in the four walls. You know, I don't want to just preach to the choir, you know. And I think that by this is what I've noticed. This is what I've noticed is irrelevant of how many times I mention the name of Jesus. I think the way I carry myself, that's more important. The way we all carry ourselves says a lot more, you know. I have a funny question though, something interesting. I'm curious to see how you're going to answer this one. Is if the tables were turned and Tony A was the pastor of Wilmington, what kind of pastor would you be?
You know what? I would be one that not only would you get the truth, but I would probably be, and please let me explain after I make my statements. I would probably be a very bad pastor, and I will tell you why. Because if somebody ever said, well, you know what, you offended me today, and so I'm going to leave your church, I would be quick to say, that's fine, go and infect somebody else's church. That's the wrong answer. I admit that, David, but that's me. Like, you know, I'm a very straightforward person.
So not bad as far as like you'd be undercover in sin. You mean bad as a like a straight line?
Well, you know, I would liken myself to a John the Baptist, I guess. That's what I would like to. I wouldn't have a problem, you know, preaching the truth, telling people the truth. But let's be honest, David, the truth offends people. The truth offends people. You know, let's look at Jesus for an example. At one point, he fed over 5,000 people, not including women and children. Another time, he said that he fed over 3,000, not including women and children. And then he tells them right before he ascends, and he says, tarry ye in Jerusalem until you receive power from on high. How many tarried? 120.
Yeah.
Only 120. What happened to all the other people? There were many people that got offended by him preaching his truth. And the only thing that they were able to convict him of was that he healed on the Sabbath. So, because he did good on a day that was meant for the people, not the people meant for that day,
Yeah.
they convicted him. So, me personally, I think I would face the same thing because I would preach the truth. You know, here Jesus was preaching love, preaching grace, and they crucified him.
When you say preach truth, do you say that because do you feel that much of the church is watered down or diluted?
Oh yeah, I believe that. I truly believe that. You look at guys like, and I'm saying this, David, you're not saying this.
Mm-hmm.
You look at guys like T.D. Jakes, you look at guys like Joel Osteen, you look at many famous preachers, okay? And they're loved by the world. They come out on The View, they come out on Oprah.
Yeah.
And here you have Jesus himself. You know, the word became flesh. He comes preaching, and the world hates him. The world couldn't get along with him. But yet the world is getting along with these guys. There's something wrong there, David. You know, and so I think I would be one of those guys that they'd want to do away with because I'm teaching the truth. They'll say he's, you know, yeah, he's teaching the word of God, but you know, you know what I'm saying, David.
So, okay, I'm gonna play. I get along with a lot of podcasters though that aren't Christian. Is there a difference?
That again?
Because you say these preachers go on The View or Oprah or whatever, they get along with them. I go on secular podcasts and get along with them. Is there a difference?
You know what? I think there really is a difference.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Because number one, you don't drive around in a Rolls Royce. You don't go around bragging about how much money comes in and you make 60, 75 $1 million off of your books, like a Joe Osteen or a Joyce Meyer, who pays herself 60 million a year. As a matter of fact, let me lay this down, and I want us to let this marinate with you, okay? I believe that the higher you go in church leadership, and I want to say this correct, David. I believe that the higher you go in church leadership, the less likely you are to encounter Jesus.
I could agree with that. I can't say 100% because we can't stereotype, but believe it or not, I actually asked God not to ever give me a mega church.
And that's a good thing.
You know, because here's the thing, right? Is I believe that every man has a limit to the power he can take where it destroys him. And
Yes.
and I don't want to find my limit. I don't. I would rather, you know, Lord, let me build up leaders that will reach people. I don't want to hoard people because I don't want that kind of power.
Right. Now, here's my thing, Dave, to answer your podcasting question. When you go on these podcasts, and you fellowship with these podcasters, your message never changes.
No.
Okay. A lot of these guys go and they'll just generalize and say God, God, God. But many of them will never say Jesus.
Yeah.
Because they know that name usually scares the hell out of the guy hosting the show.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So your message has never, ever changed. And I encourage you to continue to go on different podcasts and share the message. Yeah. You know, like I said, back to if I was the pastor of Wilmington, what kind of pastor would I be? I probably wouldn't have too many members because the members that I would have to have real thick skin But I'll tell you what, they would definitely be disciples. They would definitely be disciples because, you know, from what the scriptures tell us, they go into the world and make disciples, not converts.
That's good.
So, and I believe much of the church is not being discipled today. I mean, more people out of the church that are very knowledgeable in the scriptures. Now, they may not be living it,
Yeah.
but they're very knowledgeable in the scriptures compared to the Christians that go every Sunday that never open up their Bible, only till when the pastor says, turn to the book of John.
Yeah. Man,
You know,
that's good. So we know you wouldn't be in a Rolls. You probably wouldn't be in a fancy suit.
no, definitely not. But though I will say this, I would wear a suit. Probably something that I can barely afford. Okay,
Yeah.
I'd wear a tie, and I'm gonna tell you why. I grew up where certain restaurants you couldn't go in unless you were, you know how they say, dressed to impress. Not, no, that's not the word. They had a dress code.
Yeah.
Certain nightclubs you couldn't go in if you didn't wear the proper attire. They on the flyer it would say like dress to impress or whatnot. So there was a certain way you had to represent. Even when you go to work, there are some jobs that
Or a courtroom.
a certain way. Excuse me?
Or a courtroom.
Right. But yet, when it comes to the church, we can go in chanclas and dicky shorts and a tank top. My thing is this, that if I am ever going to be an ambassador for Christ, then I need to look like I represent the kingdom. And that's just me.
That's good. That's good.
But yet I can go dressed up to a nightclub. I can go dressed up to a party. I can go dressed up to a restaurant. I can go dressed up to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to me going to church, I just throw on whatever I want. And I think that's the mentality of a lot of people today.
Yeah.
And this is what I would push, on the church. I would never tell them what to do, but I would only simply tell them what is in the scriptures.
Well, you know what it is you lead by example. That's what it comes down to.
Yes.
I don't show up like that on a Sunday to preach. I don't go in shorts and I try to look presentable. Whether it's a tie or not, I try to look presentable because you're right. You're representing something much bigger than yourself, and so yeah, that's really key and really important. I know there's probably a lot other things. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to talk about. I know things going on in your life or things, whatever. Is there anything before we get to closing?
No, you know what? I mean, if I had to think of some things, I would just say that through podcasting, I met a lot of great people. I learned from a lot of people. I still continue to keep my circle small. To me, family is everything. And I'm going to say this first on your platform, David, that I don't know how much longer I'm going to continue to do this, but I do plan eventually after I release the Chicano Rep documentary. I do plan to eventually just disappear off of social media, period. I've even thought about eventually maybe just even taking down all my interviews because I do want to begin a different chapter in my life eventually.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much longer I'm going to be on the air, doing what I'm doing, because, podcasting, it's fun, but it doesn't make me. I don't live for no monetization. I don't live for popularity. There's just no competition for me. But I think I liked it better when I was not on social media and nobody knew who I was, and I just want to eventually just disappear. And you never know. I might just drive up and show up at your church on a Sunday.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
So when you close that chapter, I don't think I got to say what I'm praying for the next chapter.
Okay. All good. You know what? But like I said, David, I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I met you. I truly do believe. I don't believe in coincidence. So I believe that we met for a reason. Now, I never said this live, but I do believe, David, that I was created and something was put in me to bless the world. And before it's my time for me to lay down one day and slip into eternity, I truly do believe that God has placed me here to do something historic for him, not for me, but for him. I truly do believe that, David. And I think other people have seen it. Um, and I don't deny it. I go places and I meet people of God that have come up to me and that have told me, God has called you. There was a man that walked up to me and he asked me, can I pray over you? And I just asked him, do you believe in Jesus? And he said, yeah. And he prayed over me and he said, God has definitely called you. I had another man pray for me not too long ago. And he was a pastor. And he was a pastor for over 40 years. And he just told me, my prayer is that God will give you a double portion of what he gave me. And then he passed away.
Wow.
Soon after, he prayed over me.
Wow.
So things like that, David, are not by coincidence.
Yeah.
So I truly believe that God has called me to do something bigger. So we'll see what happens. That's why when I close this chapter to all this podcasting stuff, Rhodium Radio and Freaky Tales and all that stuff, I don't have to look back because I know I'm into something greater.
Yeah.
There'll be no regrets. I know that when I die one day, I would have fulfilled everything that I was called to do. And that's why I look forward to getting older. That's why I keep my circle small. I don't have too many people around me. And if God speaks to me, I like to be alone when he does.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. It's a great way to end it. I appreciate your friendship. I mean, the one time when you opened your home up for me to have dinner with you in your kitchen, in your dining room, I knew then that you trusted me, and that meant a lot. Because I know you keep your circle tight. And at that moment I said, okay, he trusts me, and I want to be a real friend to the best of my ability. And so man, I appreciate you just coming on, man, taking the time. I know things get busy, life gets busy. Trying to build this channel. I'm trying to get 1,000 subscribers on this new channel so I can go live. I can't go live. I can go live on my laptop, but I want to be able to go live on my phone. I want to start doing my paintings live. I sell paintings, a couple galleries that carry me, but I thought it'd be cool to actually let people see me paint this creation from scratch, and so that's why I'm trying to get more subscribers. I'm halfway there. I think I'm at 500 and some subscribers or whatnot, but it'll get there. You know what I mean? But I appreciate it. You just doing this.
Well, David, let's do this. Like I said, when you're getting ready to release this, you let me know. Send me the link. If you have a flyer for it, I'll put it on my YouTube community. I'll promote it on my page so that people can go and check out this interview and subscribe.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm at 543 on this new channel.
All good.
Yeah, but it's growing, man. I did American Cholo. It's up to 3K 2 days ago. Just I wish they all subscribed.
It's funny because I would interview people, and I would have 7,000 subscribers, but the views were 21,000 views, and I'm like, 7,000, 21,000 views. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
but
it is what it is. So, anyways, I'm gonna stop this recording. Thank you so much, Tony. It's always a blessing. It's always a pleasure, man.
Thank you. Likewise, my brother.
All right.